Who needs a laugh? I know I do. Let's join the Who-tastic panel for something different as they look at the very first in what was to become a hugely successful comedy series. William Hartnell stars in Carry On Sergeant.
Well, hello, everybody. How are you doing? Welcome to Who's Views. And yes, we are going back further than we've ever gone before because we are off to celebrate the carry-ons and we are going right back, goodness me, to 1958. This is pre-William Hartnell, pre-Doctor Who days. Nice to see you all. Thank you for joining us for this, the first in a brand new series of reviews for us. As you can see, I'm with George, Jodie, and with Third Doctor Ian, and I'm also here with Paul as well. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hello. Love the titles, JT. They're wonderfully cheesy. Really good.
Can I just say the first photo you brought up on the title card of the main Carry On cast altogether then, I've always called that photo the Magnificent Seven.
Oh, and we can see why. We can see why. And the thing about Sergeant is, of course, not all of them are there. We start to see the basis of this coming on, of course. But isn't this wonderful to think that the main star of this, the big cheese, is William Hartnell?
Yeah. And he's superb in this. He really is.
Yes.
We forget, don't we, these days, that he was a major star.
He was a top tier British film star by this time. He'd taken a dip out of film roles because he committed to the army game on television.
That's
then
right,
he came out of that. And then when Peter Rogers had a script called The Bull Boys, which eventually became Carry On Sergeant, very much lent into the casting of the army game, which I think was the most popular show on TV at the time. So William Hartnell, Charles Hawtrey, and Norman Rossington all came over from the army game and did like an unofficial film version of it with Carry On Sergeant.
It's a shame Bernard Breslau's not in this one as well because he was in the army game too, wasn't he? So
he was indeed, yes.
Yeah, it's just when you watch this now, it's quite difficult because this is the way before the and that side of things that are going to come into the whole. This isn't more in the style of a traditional Ealing comedy, really, for Britain at the time, isn't it? The slapstick isn't quite there. The innuendo isn't there yet. It's all coming.
Oh, I don't know. Both George and I have the wonderful you're just a heap of chits. Well, I mean that's innuendo there all over, let's be honest.
That was quite daring for 1958, wasn't it, really?
It would have been. Yeah, it would have been. Yeah.
It's amazing that got past the censors.
Yeah.
A line about sausage rolls where Bob Monkhouse was due to say man cannot live by sausage rolls alone got cut because it was spoofing a biblical reference and the BBFC said, no, we're not having that at all, cut it.
Yeah. No, it's true. That makes me laugh already now. As somebody's pointed out to us there as well, the second one, the second lead, if you like, here was Bob Monkhouse, everybody, in his one and only appearance in a Carry On film. I'd forgotten Bob Monkhouse was in this until I put the disc on.
Yeah.
Well, he had a bit of a film career as well. He's in Dentist on the Job with another film he made with, is it Dennis Goodwin, his partner he had at the time, and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Well, one thing that both William Hartnell and Bob Monkhouse have in common, as well as doing the first Carry On, was neither of them appeared in the second Carry On because they both asked for too much money to return. And as Paul just said, Bob Monkhouse went off and did the first of the two Dentist films.
Yeah. Oh yeah, right.
And which was a big success. And Bob Monkhouse was, quoted in the press as saying, "These are going to be bigger than the Carry On films. This series is going to run and run." And many years later, I had the great pleasure of meeting Bob Monkhouse, and he chatted at length about Carry On Sergeant very candidly.
All right.
And he said in his own words, "I backed the wrong horse."
Well,
I don't know though. They were never paid.
If William Hartnell had done Carry On, he wouldn't have done Doctor Who, would he? If he carried on.
No,
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
Because see if we get the dates right, it would have been around Carry On Cabby, Carry On Jack in production when Doctor Who first kicked off, and if he was still in the Carry Ons, obviously that would have precluded him from going into Doctor Who.
Yeah, it's true.
My understanding was they were never paid very much.
No.
Well,
according to Kenneth Williams, the late great Kenneth Williams, who again in this film, it's amazing to see him as a younger actor, because he's actually acting here as well. He's not going in for the all that. That's not happened yet. So here he is delivering a performance, But according to Kenneth Williams, he was paid £800 for this one.
Yes, which he also said was more than double of any fee he'd ever had previously, and at the time, to him, that was an absolute fortune.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it was. Of course, the women were paid half that. But anyway, Lex is with us. Lex is saying here, a really fun scene is when Bob Monkhouse, the poor guy on his wedding day, is called up for service. And that's the start of the whole film, isn't it? Because again, you look at this, and there are those traits that would become famous in the Carry On films. The plot lines are actually there. It really, really is good. You've got all the various things that are coming along. So you've got the whole gag about it's his wedding day. He gets called up and he can't continue the wedding day.
Yeah. Manoeuvres have been cancelled, I think Eric Barker says at one point, yes.
And isn't that brilliant the way they put it? Yeah. That whole scene where he's trying to explain why he wants leave the moment he gets to camp. And it's just so frustrating. You think to yourself, what are you doing? Just tell him. They were so polite, weren't they? Oh, look,
Kenneth Williams is quite sensible in this, isn't he? He's quite very supportive of Norman Rossington's character, isn't he? The one who's not have trouble learning how to be in the army and stuff,
Yeah. £800 says Peace. Wow, my mum and dad's first house was £500 in 1955.
Well, that sort of puts it into context.
Yeah, well, absolutely. That's that one there. And what we got? Oh, look, we've got a nice comment here from Mark. Welcome back to the only Jodie Doctor Who ever needed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Quite right.
Checks in the post, Mark. Okay. Right.
And Daryl is saying 4 more paydays like that and you could buy a house in 58. It's obviously true, isn't it? I mean, we forget about that, but it's just wonderful.
But I think Charles Hawtrey in this as well. Charles Hawtrey isn't really playing the way Charles Hawtrey plays later on.
No,
it's much. Everything is nothing like as exaggerated as the Carry-Ons became.
I love that bit when he marches into the bunk room and he does that really bizarre march, that kind of slightly skipping as he comes up up towards William Hartnell. It's hilarious. That's hilarious.
It's this bit here. It's the look that Hartnell playing Grimshaw gives him. If it's to say, "Yeah, I know you're so." Oh God.
Hartnell is so deadpan in this. He's brilliant. He really is.
It shows how good he was at comedy.
But a really unlikely friendship was Charles Hawtrey and William Hartnell were big friends.
Oh, really? Right.
Probably, obviously, through all their time on the Army game together. But yes, they enjoyed a really good friendship, and there are some terrific photographs taken during the production of Carry On Sergeant of Hawtrey and Hartnell, sharing a joke and having a good laugh together and having a smoke together and having a cup of tea and all sorts. But yeah, apparently the two of them had a really close friendship. But in real life, two different people, you couldn't imagine.
Well, I mean, we have to mention, of course, this is directed by Gerald Thomas, who went on to direct all of them.
Yes, all of them.
All of them. And I mean, you can see his sort of the whole thing about these initial few, certainly the first 3, is that they are very different and they are very traditional British black and white comedy. And I think that's why I love them. But my heart is with the ones that come later on, where it is a bit more, in your face and a little bit more sort of risque for the time.
Even though they are traditional comedies of the time, as you say, JT, I think they're far pacier. I mean, I watched Carry On Sergeant yesterday for this, and I was struck about how quickly it moved on. unlike other films of the time. It really bounces from one gag to the next. There isn't a wasted frame. And I think that's because Jerry Thomas, the director, as you said, had many years experience as an editor. And he knew exactly where to cut. And, and he knew where the laugh came and when to cut away from it. So there isn't any wasted time in it, building up to the next gag. It just moves from one to the next.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? I mean, the whole brilliant thing about this is quite topical at the moment, because if you're outside the UK or you don't know the Carry On films, we're here to say to you, you really have to go and look at the Carry On films became the British, the most famous British, the most successful British run of comedies. 31 of them over how was it, 2 decades, 3 decades, 3 decades. From this one in 1958 up to one we won't really talk about in the 70s, early 80s.
Or the 90s.
Yeah. Oh, well, not one. But, and it established a whole load of British greats coming together for basically the same film with different settings. Let's face it. And the thing about Sergeant is this is the template for that. I mean, it goes to the army. The Carry-Ons go to the army several times because of the success. This was a huge hit. This was a massive hit.
Don't forget, back in 1958, National Service, which was something that touched practically everybody's life, either directly or indirectly. But just touching on what you said, JT, Peter Rogers once said, "We didn't make 31 Carry-On films. We made Carry On Sergeant and remade it 30 times."
I love
what struck me watching this yesterday as well was, if this was later on in the series when Sid James joined, would Sid James have been Sergeant Grimshaw rather than Hartnell, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think that would have been Sid James's role.
Yeah, I do as well, actually.
Because he's like the head of police and constable, isn't he? The sergeant of police.
Yeah.
It
would have been quite interesting to see that. I mean, I can't imagine anybody else but Hartnell playing this role. And I'm sure Hartnell wouldn't like that, because, of course, he was getting typecast at this point, as we know.
Well, you can see why he's typecast. He's so good at it. You know what I mean? If you look at him in other films as sergeants, The Way Ahead or other films like that, even the comedy ones he does, he's superb as a sergeant. Really is.
Well, if you look at the surviving episodes of the Army Game that he's in, there's very definite echoes of that in Carry On Sergeant.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Well, they were trying to. I've got my Carry On book here, and they were actually saying that they were trying to bring in that element of the Army Game, the success of the Army Game, into this film, and they succeed, really, don't they? It's just on a bigger scale. Really,
I have to say though that the film's better than the Army Game. I've got the Army Game DVD. Yeah, I'll never get that time back again. That's all I'm saying. But,
Pete's reminds me of another Carry On favourite that makes her debut in this film, the wonderful, the gorgeous Hattie Jakes. And again, the makings of matron is there. You can see here she is playing the doctor, and just beautifully doing this. I love the rapport she's got here with Kenneth Connor, to the point where there's that beautiful scene where Kenneth Connor, playing the hypochondriac, goes in to see her every day at the same time, every single day. And there's that beautiful moment where the two of them are together, where they're talking, and she says, right, she starts writing out the prescription. Like, there you go. Leave it. I'll see you tomorrow. I love that scene. Absolutely wonderful. But the bit where she gets hold of him, she says, we're going on a drive. And then she takes him to the best doctors in
Yeah.
He literally replayed this character again in Carry On Theo, wasn't it? It's exactly the same character.
I think it's the same character he played in a few.
Hengist. And he's square wheel.
And his wife, Senna. Perfectly.
Yeah. But also, I mean, the other side to this character is Kenneth Connor was good at this. That's why, obviously, they kept writing it for it. Because the other side of this character is what I used to call the War syndrome. Yeah. Because he's quite shy. Yeah. He's quite shy of the women, isn't he? He can't really... Yeah. And he plays that character again in Teacher, and to an extent in Clear, and a few others as well. It's that sort of... And it's quite bizarre.
He does that beautifully when he gets his mojo back and becomes Horace Strong, Horace Strong. He's brilliant. The contrast is really, really funny, really good.
Yeah, but it is very similar to Cleo in that context, isn't it? In Cleo, he gets
when he takes the potion.
Yeah. What's this? Sid James was a friend of Tony Hancock, I think. You're right. Yeah, they worked together for many years. I believe they did have a falling out when they went different ways. That's quite sad, but that's
he was in Hancock's half hour, wasn't he?
Yes,
Williams.
Hancock got very jealous that people were getting more laughs than him, so they were sequentially written out. Hattie Jakes was written out, then Sid James was written out, and of the TV series, and it just became Hancock. And although they remain friends, I don't think they socialise anymore. Sorry,
the Hancock with the H, he does at the beginning of
it. We've got Gareth
Sid
joining.
James got his own series from that, didn't he? Got Citizen James after that, and he became his own.
Oh yeah, loads.
Yeah.
Bless this house.
Right after Hancock, I know he did lots of things after that.
George and the Dragon.
Yeah,
Bless his house, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, loads of things.
Yeah.
I mean, this was the brilliant thing, people, about the carry-ons, because you got the best at the time comic talent coming together, and it's something that you wouldn't get today. Not to this extent, and not this funny, because they gelled beautifully together, and they were so clever and so good at their performance that they were able to take these scripts, which they weren't always happy with, let's face it, but they put that aside and they came in, did their bit, and went home. But it's magical because their comic timing. And here in Sergeant, no wonder this was a massive hit, and no wonder it started this chain that is still around to this very day and appreciated by thousands and thousands of people across the country. Gareth is joining us. He's not in from the UK. The Carry On movies were iconic, by the way. I'm a Yank, and I've loved them for decades.
Well, to this day, in terms of number of tickets sold and bums on seats, the most successful British film ever in American cinemas is Carry On Nurse.
Ooh, fantastic! Which was the second one, which is the one after this, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Is that the one with the daffodil and Wilfred?
That's the one.
Yes,
that's the one.
Absolutely. I mean, those little bits in here. These little bits. Hi to Terry that's joining us, and Steve is saying to us here, he was great in Private's Progress. There you go.
Yeah, Hartnell's super. He's got a very small part in that with Ian Carmichael. Yeah, but
See, with this being a carry-on film, when you say something like that, I'm supposed to go, you know, it's got a very small part, really.
You need little signs as well, don't you?
That's the humour. That's the humour we deal with on the carry-on films. Want to be my doll, says Steve Hindley.
Yeah, Dora Bryan is superb in this as well, isn't she? She's really funny.
Isn't she fantastic?
Yeah.
She's again, I forgot she was in this until I put it on again. Dora Bryan, there's a name.
Though Dora Bryan was cast because Joan Sims was unavailable.
Oh, really? No, I didn't know that. Oh, that's
again a bit like William Hartnell. I can't see anyone else playing Nora than Dora Bryan, to be honest. You know.
Yeah, but she was another one. She didn't come back to them either, did she?
No, I
don't think so.
I can't remember.
This was her only Carry On.
Yeah. So considering that, I mean, we've got a cast here. Let me read them out, everybody. We've got William Hartnell, Bob Monkhouse, Shirley Eaton, Eric Barker as Captain Potts, bless him. Dora Bryan, Bill Owen, Bill Owen, Charles Hawtrey, Kenneth Connor, Kenneth Williams, Terence Longden, who did become a regular for a wee while there, Hattie Jakes, and out of nowhere, although he wouldn't come back for quite a while, Terry Scott.
Yeah.
I mean, it was nice to see him in the first one. You know,
well, it's interesting. There's a bit in the NAFI, I think, with all the soldiers, and then they've got Terry Scott, William Hartnell, and there's Ed Devereaux from Skippy. He's next to him as well. He's the guy from Skippy. Remember him?
Yeah, Ed Devereaux appeared in several Carry-Ons.
He did.
Which ones is he in?
He was in a Carry On Jack. Instantly springs to mind. He was one of the pirates with Peter Gilmore.
Right.
Yes, in Carry On Jack. Yeah. But that's the only one I've got here on my list.
But I do remember him from Skippy in the 70s.
Well, he was an Australian actor, came over to the UK and went back over again.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at what
it's interesting that the top 7 billed names for Carry On Sergeant, out of those 7, there's only one, Kenneth Connor, who became a recognisable Carry On regular.
And what an absolute career he had as well, as well as doing the carry-ons, because these things spun off into things, not just the films, but there were limited theatre shows, there were television shows later on in the run, all from this particular film. And for Kenneth Connor to keep coming back and still being employed on other things as well, he became one of our generation's recognisable comics, didn't he?
Well, he ended up in a low from his sort of last performances, didn't he, towards the end?
He's brilliant in that as well, isn't he?
I did laugh as well. Last night when we were watching it, Richard immediately recognised Bill Owen when he was walking across, because his walk is exactly the same as from Last the Summer Wine. He was like, "Oh my God, that's Bill Owen."
I think it's really weird seeing him in that, because you don't instantly think about him being in them. I think he's in 3 or 4, isn't he? But it's quite weird seeing him there than thinking of Compo at the same time, you know. But,
yeah, Doug, you're right. Yeah, Doug's agreeing with us there about the actors. So Gerald Campion was in it as well. Billy Bunter, and of course he would Sharda. He turns up in Sharda, doesn't he? Which is nice to know. But that's great. And
he had his in later years he had his own West End bar as well.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
Yes, Jerry's bar.
Yeah.
Did you see a little extra from Jack Smithurst from Love Thy Neighbour? He's in the ranks of the soldiers at one point. Yeah.
And Bernard Kay pops up as well.
And Derek Martinus as well, which is a really bizarre one.
Yeah. And one actor who should have been in it but wasn't was Patrick Newell, who later found fame as Mother in the Tara King run of the Avengers.
Oh gosh, really?
Yeah, the first he was going to play a squaddy, and he turned up on the first day of shooting on location at Queen's Barracks in Guildford to see his own drill sergeant from his army days coaching the cast on how to march properly. Yeah. Now, he didn't get on with his drill sergeant, so he got back into his car and drove off.
Fair enough.
That's brilliant.
George.
Yeah.
You should write a book, my friend.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely write a book.
I've actually got a half-written carry-on book here.
Well, you should get it finished. You should absolutely
get the other half done as well then.
Look, Lex is asking us here, was it actually filmed at an army base?
Yes, it was the Queen's Barracks in Guildford.
Yeah. And you can tell, can't you? Listen, guys, we're actually being joined now. Let's bring him on. We're being joined by our friend Jack M. Hiya, Jack.
Hiya.
How are you?
Hi, Jack. Hello.
Hello, Jack.
Sorry I'm late.
We'll forgive you. Yes. So listen, Jack, you're the youngest of us on the panel.
Oh no, singled out again.
But it leads me to ask you, what attracts you to Carry On Sergeant?
I was basically raised by my grandparents because both my parents were in full-time work. So what they liked, I end up liking. Laurel and Hardy, Norman Wisdom, and the Carry On films. And Carry On Sergeant meant a lot to my granddad because he was the last year to have to do national service.
So far, yep.
Yeah, until I have to. Only I'll be learning how to shoot a laser rifle.
That sounds far more exciting, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah. In case you don't know what we're talking about here, it has been muted in this our general election year here in the UK. It's been mooted by one of the parties that they will bring back a new form of national service, which I'm sure the armed forces are in horror over.
I think we'll be doing worse than putting the Bren Guns magazine in the wrong way.
If it's like Laser Quest, I'll be signing up myself. I think.
Well, someone's got to. Anyway, we won't go into that, but let's keep it fun. Matthew is saying to us all, everybody here, look at this. No bias here at all. Shirley Eaton.
Goldfinger. Lovely, yes.
Yes. Well,
yeah.
Shirley Eaton
How can you tell it with black and white?
Messages.
Yeah.
Shirley Eaton got to do a big promotional tour of Goldfinger in the States because of the huge success of Carry On Nurse, and she was a known face in America, much to the chagrin of Hannah Blackman, who was the lead girl in Goldfinger.
Of course, yeah.
Now she should have been in Carry On film, shouldn't she? Hannah Blackman playing that character.
Apparently, Hannah was a bit miffed. She didn't get to go on an all expenses trip to the States to promote Goldfinger, and Shirley Eaton did. But it was purely because of Shirley Eaton's association with Carry On Nurse, and she was known to US filmgoers because of it.
Well, yeah. How brilliant though! And what I mean, again. Here she is. Shirley Eaton is in this first one. She does do a couple more as well.
Yeah, she does.
Plays more or less the same character as they tended to do. But it's lovely to see her in this, isn't it? Again, it's setting the tone for everybody that comes afterwards, like Joni and everybody like this.
Shirley would have gone on and been a Carry On regular, but she discovered towards the end of the shooting of Carry On Nurse, the next one, she was pregnant.
Oh, this is right?
And she came back for a guest party. She came back for a guest party in Carry On Constable. She missed out on Carry On Teacher. And then she dialed back on the acting work to raise a family. And she just did a few appearances after that.
They missed a trick there. They could have been Carry On Up the Duff or something like that.
Well, actually, we get closer to that later on in the season, in the series, don't we, really? You know, we're one of those, But I think it's brilliant, though, that the Carry On films capture the imagination of youngsters like our Jack here as well. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And I think Jack, do you think it's down to the fact that it's the humor? Do you still get the humor like we did when we saw this at your age and before that, of course?
I absolutely love this humor. I think it's funnier than any kind of humor you get today because it's intelligent and it's witty, and but we always get laughs whenever I watched it with my gran and granddad. It's a bit of a difficult topic for me at the moment because my granddad passed recently and my gran now suffering with dementia. So it's these films are in many ways a lot of what I have left. And I'd say for me, my favourites are the ones, let's just say, where they're a bit more revealing than the others.
Oh, yeah.
So Carry On Cleo, especially, and stuff like that. I mean, this stuff just isn't allowed nowadays. So, we don't have much. But then you go back and watch this older stuff. Like me and my friend are watching the James Bond films, and it's, he's got more than his P99 out. So it's just...
Hasn't he always, Jack? Hasn't he always?
Yeah. Wait till we get to Carry On Spying. We've got Kev saying to us here, everybody. Hi, everyone. Saturday 2 nights ago, I watched this for the first time in nearly 40 years. I loved Kenneth Williams' voice in this one. Oh, and William Hartnell's eyes at the end. The thank you with no words. And it's all about, Steve's pointing out to us here, we must remember the 50 quid because it's all about that, isn't it? I mean, 50 quid was a lot of money back then.
Yeah, and in the future, if you watch Tomb of the Cybermen, that's another story. Hartnell, that's a lovely feel-good story in Carry On Sergeant, and that it's really when he gets that lighter as a present, and they all do him proud. It's a lovely feel-good film, isn't it? Towards the end, and that brass band music at the end is a great kind of stirring feeling you get towards the end of the movie, don't you think?
Yes. It was also a very early example of product placement, because if you notice in that shot where William Hartnell takes the lighter out of its case, you clearly see Ronson on the case, and it's because of that Ronson put a few £100 into the budget in return for the product placement.
Who needs sugar puffs?
Look, they were ahead of their time in the 50s, weren't they? They knew what they had to do. The brilliant thing is, all these things were made on the cheap, and they always were for their entire run. I mean, they are famous, the Carry On films, everybody out of the UK who don't know. They were famous for being made in similar circumstances to Doctor Who. We've got Mark here telling us, George, the budget was 73,000 estimated gross, 500,000 UK modern budget equivalent. 1.5 million modern gross equivalent, 10.7 million, 10 times profit, and it would never happen again.
Can you just point out the actual confirmed budget for Carry On Sergeant once it finished production was £77,956 in 1958.
What would you get for that today?
That's pre-decimal money as well, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Yeah, pre-decimal money. You wouldn't even get an actor for that today.
That's just a catering budget on Star Wars, probably. That's what it is.
240 pennies in a pound.
Yes. I always maintained the Carry-Ons were not low-budget films. They were made economically. Peter Rogers got £5 value out of every pound he spent. I mean, look at Carry On Cleo or Carry On Screaming or Carry On the Khyber and tell me they're cheap films.
Oh, they're beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful.
Or Carry On Cowboy or any of them. He was absolutely brilliant as a film producer of really squeezing every single penny he had to spend to make it look like something.
I love that story about spraying the grass green during the winter when they're carrying on camping. That was brilliant. Absolutely. Sorry, Jodie, sorry.
No, I was just saying, Carry On, Don't Lose Your Head. The costuming and everything was It was really lovely.
One of my favorites. That one.
Yes, mine too.
There is a certain charm though about these early, especially this one, the black and white carry-ons. There is something classy about them, even though we're dealing with what then would have been actually risque humor. Because I'm sure I've read some of the responses from the critics at the time who weren't going, but they're borderline with it and suggesting that they might be a bit naughty. So it's all tame for us today. But the critics at the time are going, ooh, this is a bit, ooh, you know. And of course, the censors didn't like this one. They tried to they tried to get certain things edited out of it. They were very clever though, because they've got round them all, apart from 2, I believe. Is that right, George?
Well, yeah. Both Peter Rogers and Jerry Thomas very quickly got onto the wheeze of deliberately putting stuff into cuts of the films they would deliver to the British Board of Film Censors, knowing that they would go, no, take that out. But they would then overlook the stuff they wanted to keep in the first place. Because
isn't that what Patrick turned the face behind you to do in rehearsal, just to avoid gags, get gags in like that? Yeah.
Probably along the same lines, but yes, they would deliberately put stuff in they knew would never get past, and then use that as a bargaining chip to get what they wanted in.
Superb.
I'm glad they played the game though. We've got hi Jack Rabbit. There's for you, Jack from Pete. And we've got YW2324 saying, "I've not seen this movie."
Oh, go and see it.
Go and see it now. It's superb. You'll love it. You'll love it.
It is absolutely a must. The problem is though, when you've watched one, you've got to watch them all, which is great because we're hoping to come back with more of these carry-on reviews for us now.
Yeah. Going back to what you were saying, JT, about the first ones having a more cozy, traditional feel about them, there was a big gear change because the first 6 were written by Norman Hudis.
Norman Hudis, yes.
Yes. Lovely, lovely, lovely fella. Sadly, no longer with us. And I'll just point out he name checks me in his autobiography.
So to rush out and buy it now, George.
Yes. And then from Carry On Cabby onwards, Talbot Rothwell wrote pretty much all of them.
Yes.
And it was Talbot Rothwell that really went into innuendo overdrive.
Did Talbot Rothwell write the Up the Pompeii series as well for Frankie Howard?
He did indeed, yes.
He did, yeah.
And the Up Pompeii film, which I think is absolutely brilliant and actually better than the TV series.
Yeah.
He said that was all stuff that he had to cut from his carry-on scripts because the censors wouldn't allow it. And because
never waste a good idea.
Because the Up Pompeii film was a AA, he could get away with putting it back in.
But again, that lovely template is there for this. I mean, this has some fantastic lines like, "If you 2 of everything, you should have 2 of." You know, something like that, and you're in the army. That's hilarious. I mean, today that would be problematic.
Yeah.
So that's not, you wouldn't be able to do the carry-ons today though at all in the same way here. But Pete's saying to us here, there's a lovely DVD box set of the carry-ons if you can still get it. Now that's a good point.
Yes,
Pete.
you can. You can.
You can still get it, and if you haven't got it, go and get it, because this ties in. I've said it before on some of our other shows. Every year, you'll find that the carry-ons are put on Channel 4.
This is product placement now.
Yes.
Jodie's doing.
The vast bulk of them are now on the ITV streaming service as well.
Exactly. But what I notice they're going to be running down to 5 minutes soon, because every year there's another bit missing from them, especially the colour ones. There's another bit gone. So again, physical media, the way to go, everybody. Jack, I don't know if you've got these on DVD, but if you haven't, go and get them on DVD.
Oh, yeah,
definitely, because the way they've chopped some classic comedies is absolutely shocking. I'm not going to say what scene, but there was a scene from Blackadder 2 that they chopped that I was watching about a few months ago, and it actually ruined the entire scene for me, because I was like, oh my God, the whole ending of that scene's gone.
Yeah.
So it's harsh chopping. It's not just taking a line out, it's taking like whole punchlines out. It's really bad.
I've been watching Steptoe Son on one of the channels, and they've put a disclaimer on before it, a trigger warning, and they've cut bits out. And if it's a swear word, they take the word out, but they still mouth the word, which is really weird. So the volume goes down, you can't hear it. It's really, really weird. And if you're going to put a disclaimer up, surely that's enough, isn't it?
I think it's a sad indication that they have to do that anyway. I mean, what kind of view do they have of the viewing public? You're always going to get some people that are going to complain about anything. They always have. There's always people that are there to be professionally outraged. But seriously, I mean, to have to cut things out of Blackadder or the Carry On films, they were never offensive. They were never really rude. They were never promoting violence or any harm to anybody else.
No.
They were just good old-fashioned British fun.
Yeah.
And if you have to cut things out of it, that suggests more about them and the state that we're in. To be quite honest, it's a sad state. It really is.
Yeah.
By physical media.
There's an awful snobby attitude towards the Carry-Ons, though.
Yeah.
And
I think they're a lot of people's dirty secret, though.
Yeah, well, they shouldn't be so secret.
I mean, it's getting ridiculous now. I can understand. The point about this, though, is when you look at them where we should be now and today, is this British seaside humour. This is the stuff you went to Blackpool and saw on a postcard with. I mean, that's what we know the Carry-Ons to be. Barbara Windsor would always say, because she came into the films very, soon after this, a few years after, she would always say the whole thing about the Carry-Ons is this is postcard seaside humour. It's British. And you look at that, and it is, and it's so over the top. But I just remember as a kid not being influenced by these things at all. All I remember being was thoroughly entertained and laughing and laughing and laughing. And I loved the fact that, the fellas, especially in the last one, whenever they came across a endowed female, would just lose the plot because it showed you how pathetic that fella was.
I mean, I laugh when people call them sexist because I don't think they're sexist at all, actually.
I have a very strong memory of going to see Carry On Abroad with my family when it was first released at the local Odeon.
Yeah.
And to this day, I can remember people literally falling off their seats laughing at it.
I wish I'd been old enough to go to see these things at the cinema, because I only ever saw them on the telly. And it must have been a thrill to go to the actual cinema to see these things.
I've never seen them in the cinema either, but I saw the Marx Brothers once in the cinema, Duck Soup, with an audience, and it makes a huge difference having an audience. I'd love to see one of these films in the cinema with a proper audience. It would be great,
You could hire me on in Lonsdale, just.
Yeah,
okay,
we could.
Okay, well, have a day trip. Sounds good.
We'll have to petition all the local cinemas around the country that are small and not part of the big chains. Jack, would you go to the pictures to see these things at the cinema?
Absolutely, especially my favourite ones.
Yeah,
it'd be great. It's just finding someone to go with who knows what they are. In my generation, it's so.
Oh, go by yourself. Listen to this. We've got in the comments here. We've got Data Debaser saying he's looking forward to the Carry On Screaming discussion.
Oh yeah,
that's my favourite one.
Well, would it hurt to tell you that's obviously going to be in October? Is it going to hurt? Is that a spoiler? That's going to be in October. Yeah.
Which October?
I wouldn't. Which October? Yeah, there's a pun there. And Steve is saying to us, "My son loves the Carry-Ons, and he's 18. A man of taste there."
Yes,
I think that's a man of taste. And Paul Richards was saying to us, I love the Carry-Ons. William Hartnell was great playing stern characters. He was, but he got the typecasting thing for. But it's here we see the true talent of our very own Mr. Hartnell, don't we? Because he's stern.
He's got
my goodness.
He's got a real twinkle in this, which he has in Doctor Who, I think, and it's brilliant. And he's deadpan, but you can see he's got amazing comic timing. Yeah.
It's the reminder of the 50 quid all the time, isn't it, from Bill Owens?
Yeah, he tries to play that down and then he realises he's going to lose it and comes up again.
One thing that residents of Mayfield in Sussex would have been treated to after Carry On Sergeant was made was William Hartnell kept his army uniform after filming, and apparently he used to do the gardening in it. So anybody walking past his cottage would have seen him in his army uniform.
That is brilliant. I mean, the other thing about this Carry On Sergeant is that this shows me, like other films of its time, what Britain was possibly like at the time, and how everything because what the Carry-Ons were so brilliant at doing, and here it is in Sergeant for the first one, it's right there. It's taking normal British everyday things like a train journey, like a wedding, like going into your national service, and twisting it slightly. So it's taking the rise out of it all as well. It's just magical.
It's funny you should say that, JT. When I was watching that yesterday, that's exactly what I thought. This is a time capsule now
Yeah.
You know, things like, as you said, the train with the leather strap on the window to drop the glass.
What's that about?
Or getting a telegram at a wedding, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Well,
You know, Charles Hawtrey in the naffy saying, "A bar of chocolate, please, miss," and she's saying, "Sixpence."
What made me laugh, many things made me laugh in this film, but Kenneth Connor, the hypochondriac, he's got all these different drugs he's taking. He's got all the medicine in the cabinet, but they go to the naffy and all the guys have pints of beer and he's a glass of milk. It's fabulous.
Yes.
Oh, that's me.
It is clever, isn't it? Those little points that they've got there. It really is wonderful. Let's see what the guys are saying. Everybody's saying to us in the chat here. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody, for this, our first review of a Carry On film. Guess where we're going with this? Doug is saying to us here, Charles Hawtrey was my favourite as a kid. I later found out he had a hell of a life, not to mention setting his house on fire. That's a very famous story, that one there.
Yeah.
But, and apparently he was quite batty as well. You know, there's a famous story of how he was on one of the carry-ons. He brought his mother to work and her handbag goes on fire because a cigarette's got in there for somehow. And Joan Sims always used to tell the story of how he casually got a cup of tea and threw it in the handbag and carried on with his story. Yeah. And that's camp. That's camp.
I love Dan, the lavatory man. He's one of my favorites.
he was a genuine eccentric. A chap I knew who was a cinema manager in the 1960s. The cinema he was managing at the time did a regional charity premiere of Carry On Screaming, and Charles Hawtrey came along to support it and promote the regional charity premiere. And he told me that Charles Hawtrey turned up, did not make eye contact with anybody, did not say a word to anybody, just sat into the hospitality room until somebody knocked on the door and said, "Okay, Mr. Hawtrey, it's time to go." And he said, it's like somebody flicked a switch. He stepped out of the room and he was everybody's friend. You know, he was engaging with the crowd. He really bigged up the carry-ons, the films, everybody he worked with. The film went on the screen. He went back into the hospitality room. Somebody flicked the switch and he went back to not acknowledging anybody's existence.
It's true what they say about a lot of the comics, though, isn't it? You know, and now that they're practically all of the regulars have gone, haven't they? We learn more about them, and gosh, they all had demons. Problem being is with us, Lee saying that Problem Being, and Jack actually rewatched Carry On Sergeant just yesterday, as I had by coincidence bought the Carry On box set just the other week. I'm so glad you managed to get that because you've got other films there. But also because I'm terrified at some point that they'll withdraw it because some loon is crying out to cancel them.
Well, I've got the same one as you, JT. Is anything cut from it that you know of so far?
No, the one that Jodie's got, the one that Lee will have, the one that we've got is all intact.
So all physical releases have been the complete theatrical cuts of them.
Which is fantastic.
But can I just point out that the Carry-Ons, the entire series is going through a lot of restoration work at the moment, which would indicate they're on the way on Blu-ray.
I've seen the Blu-rays actually advertised for sale on certain retail, and I thought to myself, "Ooh, I'll get them." But what I found out, guys, is that
they're Australian.
No. What I found out is they're not actually in release order, and that annoyed me.
There's
release order.
Yeah, there's 3 box sets.
Once an OCD Doctor Who fan, always an OCD Doctor Who fan.
There's 3 box sets which have been released in Australia so far by a company called Imprint, which are the first 12 carry-ons broken down into sequential 4s, and 4 of them have been released on Blu-ray in the UK so far, but all 31 are having have either had or are having restoration work done on them. So I think at some point there's going to be a blanket Blu-ray release of them.
And do you think they'll be cut? You think?
No.
No. I mean, the Carry On fan. I mean, Carry On fans are like us as Doctor Who fans, like any fan. They're quite protective of their, you know, and there's no way the Carry On fans quite rightly would allow anybody to touch them. They have to. I mean, it's bad enough watching them on the TV at Christmas. Yeah. You say, Jodie, the gags don't land anymore. So anybody of Jack's age that are coming and watching these on the telly must think, why do people like these? Because they're not funny. That doesn't work. What's that about? You've got to see the full thing.
I'll have a big sticker on the front saying it was made at a different time, though, won't it? You know, if offended, don't watch.
Sticker you can take off. Kev's pointing out to us that it was mostly women who were playing in the brass band. Well, that's the reason for that, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was the Coldstream Guards.
And they did a great job.
Yeah, no, it was the actual Coldstream Guards.
Yeah, it was.
That did the entire score for Carry On Sergeant, not just the brass band at the end on the parade.
Yeah, and that music.
Fine band. Worked with them for many years.
Oh, did you?
Yep. All of them, actually.
Fabulous.
Whole Guards Division in my early Ministry of Defence years. Spent 6 years with the Guards Division. The bands were immense.
That's fantastic. I like that. But that tune as well.
The Carry On theme by Bruce Montgomery
stays around for a bit. I love that, the fact that there's this uniformity in the original days, you know, and it sort of stays around for about 10, 20 years, and little bits of it as well.
The original theme tune was used in the first, rearranged, used in the first 6 films, and it's now universally known as the Carry On theme.
The Carry On theme.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. I just think it's absolutely fantastic. It's so important, this film. It sets the scene for what's to come, for the most profitable and successful and beloved comedy series in British history, and they had no idea.
Yeah,
but it also set the scene for others, because there were sort of spin-offs from all this, wasn't there? You know, and it's just it's so clever. It all stems from the success of Sergeant.
Yeah, but their success goes further than that, JT, in terms of profit to cost ratio. Outside Bollywood, the Carry Ons are the most successful films ever.
Wow.
Which is amazing, considering that our film industry is dead in the water now. I mean, look what they were turning out there. And the brilliant thing about it as well is they were profitable because he didn't pay anybody. And as you were sort of hinting at before as well, the producers, Peter Rogers, was so clever at using stuff that was already left around. Cleo, you know, that was also so clever. Even this one, there's stuff left from other productions.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's hard, I think, to get your head around the popularity of the films in their heyday. I mean, jumping ahead, in 1969, the #1 box office film in the UK was Carry On Camping. #2 box office film in the UK was Carrying Up the Khyber.
Wow.
The #8 box office film in the UK was a re-release of Carry On Cleo.
It's just brilliant, isn't it? I mean, I would have loved to have been able to go and see these films at the cinema and experience what. Can you just? I mean, it's difficult for us to imagine, really, for those, because we never got there, especially for Jack as well. But Jack, we're like you on this particular one, because we never got to the pictures, apart from George, to see this thing. We never got to see them there.
Years.
I love the idea of people laughing their heads off at these things and getting the gags together in a cinema. I just think that's so magical.
Yeah, well,
you are.
Go on,
Sorry, Jack, go ahead.
What I think is great is I've been watching these since I was a kid. Now, obviously, as a kid, I didn't really understand every innuendo, but as I've grown up, even though I've seen them countless times, I'm watching them now and I'm going, oh, you know. And it's
I think we all do that. I think.
Yes, I think that's a rite of passage. I mean, I'm probably going to ask you to have a leap of faith here, but this is absolutely true. I can remember when I just turned 14, going to see Carry On Emmanuel when it was first released. And the audience in the cinema were laughing at it.
Oh, were they?
Yeah. So that thing about, you know, it's a totally different thing when you watch it with an audience, kicks in on that one in a big way.
Must have been.
I've not seen that. So having the box set now, I can watch that eventually, but I've never actually seen that film at all.
Through it. I have to say that the theme tune for that one is the best thing about it. I can't get through it, and it's just tacky.
It's not top tier Carry On, but I don't think it's as bad as its reputation makes it out to be.
We'll agree to disagree.
Is Robin Asquith in it as well?
Stephen
Carry On Girls.
Stephen Braddock is with us saying, love Carry On Sergeant, great cast, and William Hartnell is superb, a hard nut with a heart of gold. I love the fact that in this as well, that this is something that turns into a sort of running theme for the first wee while as well, or if not all of them, is that apparently Peter Rogers or Gerald Thomas, one of the two, had said to Norman Huddis, the writer, finish with a happy end, fishing with an emotional ending.
Yes.
For this one, you do get that, because even though the Sergeant Grimshaw doesn't have the tear in his eye, the audience might have done back then.
Yeah.
I didn't, because I'm hard like that.
I think it implies that you've got there a typical career soldier who's probably gone beyond his regular 22 years, probably because he's married to the army and doesn't really have anybody else at home. So when he's finally discharged, he's going to who knows what uncertainty, probably a lot of time on his own. So there's that poignancy, and that he's finally got the platoon that's got through and won the title or whatever it is, and he's won his 50 quid bet. And these soldiers that came in as a ragtag band have presented him with this lighter, trademark Ronson. That it does get you. You do feel a little bit of emotional pang there.
I think that's a bit of a miracle they managed to pull it off, though, considering their performance earlier on in the film, though. But
yeah, totally.
We've got I'm trying to keep up with you all in the chat. Keep it all coming, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for this. We've got lots coming here. Gary is joining us as well, saying Carry On movies, James Bond, Beatlemania, The Merseybeat, Carnaby Street, Dalek Mania, fashion design. Britain led the culture of the world in the 60s. Didn't we just? What happened? What went wrong?
I honestly think there's a terrible thing where we shoot ourselves in our own feet, because we do have this look down on attitude about the Carry-Ons, and we also have it about Hammer Horror. And I think it was really silly, because these were films that were making money for a British film industry that ended up dying in its feet in the early 80s.
Yeah.
Well, it's a great point. It's a really good point. And it's true as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I remember British Film Year, and they were trying desperately to get money into the film industry in Britain when I was, I don't know, I'd be 14, 15, I think, at the time. And it was all pretty grim at that point.
Well, even in the early 80s, when they started doing things, Bill Forsyth, the Gregory's Girl, and things like that, you know, these kind of movies with Bill Putman and all people like that, they were starting to get it going, but they didn't quite manage it, which is a real shame.
No, that's true.
If you look at the British Film Institute list of the most important 100 British movies ever made, there's 2 Carry-Ons on there.
Oh, that's good to know, isn't it? I mean, you cannot get more British than these to an extent, you know. And as we go through the later run as well, even the Union flag starts to make an appearance in the blooming thing constantly, and it's that lovely British sort of, as I say, that humour that's unique to us, and which in a sense has been lost, really. You know, it's a shame, really. I mean, you know, it's a real shame there. I like this one from Lynn. Hiya, Lynn. Nice to see you. I used to watch the Carry On films with my parents and grandparents back in the day, but I can't remember this one. I managed to find it on the Internet Archive, and I loved it. That's nice to know, isn't it?
Yeah.
Same as Jack there. You still with us, Jack?
Yeah, still. I just didn't want to interrupt anyone, but I just...
No, you interrupt away, kids. You get in there. Yes.
I just realised that when I watch the Carry On films, it makes me genuinely enjoy history a lot more, because of their parodying of like different periods of human history, like French Revolution. And I'm not even joking. I think I might have learned more from these films than school.
That's a bit worrying.
Yeah, it's the truth.
Can you remember imagine them getting an exam about Caesar?
They haven't even warmed the seat.
Listen, George, as we discovered there, is in the middle of what's this actually? Let me just see this. Oh, it's Kirsty, our very own Kirsty. Thank you to Kirsty and Garbage, who are in the chat with us, keeping everybody tidy and everybody nice in there. Thanks, guys. Never seen anything of the Carry-Ons, but the troops have encouraged me to start. She got a little gag in there as well. The troops.
Yeah, she said she's only just out the womb, she said.
Well, you're in for a treat, Kirsty.
Yeah, Jack, you're about the same age as Kirsty. Give us something. Tell her why she should be watching the Carry-Ons.
Escapism, real proper English, and just lots. I don't know. You put me on the spot, JT. Great characters. You know, lots of fun, and you know, if you're not easily offended, then you're going to absolutely love it.
And if you are easily offended, touch grass.
Don't watch anything.
You should be watching. Yeah, exactly, Jack. Don't watch anything, but you should be watching these, because a little bit of sauce does nobody any harm at all. And then you'll understand us more on this show. We've also got Lex telling us here, I like the character whose father was in the army. His grandfather was in the army.
Yeah.
They ask him, why don't you become an officer? I don't want to. That is a good one, actually. That one, isn't it? You know, and it's nice to see all these people. We've discovered that George was actually busy writing a book, which he's now obviously going to be finishing, and we can plug it on this show. But you've sent us some pictures here as well. So let's look at these now. I love these sort of pictures. If you saw our Peter Cushing shows about the Dalek films, you will know I have this passion about seeing these old little films they used to put outside the cinemas when you were queuing, so you could see these little inserts of the films as you were moving up towards the door. It sounds so primitive, doesn't it, really? But that's what would happen because the queues were so big. Now, we showed this one at the top of the show, which is Bob Monkhouse with William Hartnell. I love there he is. William Hartnell is the lead there. You can see that. Bob Monkhouse comes next, then Shirley Eaton, Eric Barker, Dora Bryan, Bill Owen, and Kenneth Connor. No Kenneth Williams. No Charles Hawtrey. No Hattie Jakes, none of the, you know, I mean, isn't that amazing? Because only Kenneth Connor goes on after this. Isn't that amazing?
It wasn't meant to be a series, was it? It was just a film made and then it caught on, didn't it? It wasn't going to be
well, it was because it made money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it wasn't
apparently there was
series, did it?
Yeah, there was some friction between Bob Monkhouse and William Hartnell during the shooting of Carry On Sergeant. Because William Hartnell, in his contract, was given top billing as the main title star of the film. But Bob Monkhouse, while the film was in production, was trying to sweet talk Peter Rogers into giving him top billing. And William Hartnell found out about this, and he wasn't too happy about it.
I wonder why.
I see they put him in the titles though. And Bob Monkhouse, didn't they?
And Bob Monkhouse,
yeah, at the titles.
Yeah, I think that
egos. Look at that.
I remember reading in Who's There by Jessica Carney about Hartnell's biography, and that they actually got on eventually because I think Bob Monkhouse's dad died or something like that, and Hartnell was very supportive of him during that time, and which was really good, really nice.
That's absolutely right. Apparently, because Hartnell himself had a very rocky start to life. Sort of found empathy with Bob Monkhouse, and it healed a lot of wounds between them.
Well, that's you say all's well that ends well. However, it's interesting though because producer Peter Rogers would years and years later say that he didn't feel Bob Monkhouse fit what he imagined the regular team to be. So that's why Bob Monkhouse never came back, and it could be something to do with the money situation as well, maybe. But this is what
I think that's got.
You can see this. You can actually see this on the tube of Who. You can actually see the video where he's at a convention and he says this, and he basically says, "And Bob Monkhouse never invited me to anything ever again."
I think that's got more to do with Bob Monkhouse's demands for billing and salary more than anything else.
Oh yeah, probably. But Peter Rogers does say he didn't fit into what he thought the team was going to be. Let's look at this. We've also seen this one. This is Hattie Jakes with Kenneth Connor here. This is aren't these beautiful? You don't get these sort of things in the cinema anymore. Look at this one.
I love there's a fantastic shot in the film when they're charging the dummies. And Kenneth Williams gone full Kenneth Williams face when he's charging. Did you notice that?
Yeah,
it's really funny.
I love all these shots. I mean, that's obviously one when they're not filming. Look, they're quite casual there. There's this one. Just absolutely wonderful. I actually didn't know. We'll move on. And we've got this one as well.
That's one of my favourite scenes when Hartnell comes out and it's at the first picture you showed and Bob's like that, wanting a kiss, and he comes out and Hartnell's there. That's really funny.
But when you see, I've been back in the day, surely when they saw this, when they were lining up, they must have been thinking, what's going on here? That's William Hartnell and Shirley Eaton and what's happening? Because they had no idea what they were about to walk in. This was the first Carry On. They had no idea what was going to happen here. This is a nice one as well. Poor old Kenneth Connor there. Look, that's strong being not strong. And then finally, out of these wonderful, wonderful photographs, we've got this one.
I think is that Derek Martinez just at the back of Charles Foster there.
It is, yes.
Now there's a name for Doctor Who fans.
Yeah. If you don't know Costy, look it up, okay? Right.
I mean, all of these people in there would have done national service themselves, wouldn't they, if not served in the regular army anyway?
Yeah.
But, It does surprise me. I know it's been mentioned, but it does surprise me that Kenneth Williams and Hattie Jakes aren't on those credits, because I mean, by 58, I think Williams had been in Hancock's Half Hour for 4 years at that point, and had been on the radio and had been very, very popular. And Hattie Jakes had been in it probably for about a year. I think she was in series 4 and 5. So very, very, very popular people, very famous people in Britain, but they weren't on the listings, which surprises me.
Yeah. And also by that time, Kenneth Williams was a big West End name as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, as I said at the top of the show, this is an interesting performance for our Kenneth here, isn't it? Really, because it really does not show any.
No.
I mean, it's like these first few films. He's the intellectual. He's in a sense playing himself, because he was. We know he was an extremely clever, very good voice, very well read, very snooty man as well, wasn't he? Really, he was a bit snobbish. And he's basically playing himself in these first few films here, and certainly in this one. I mean, the fact that his character here is so anti everything at this point. I'm a civilian until the moment I put the uniform on, and he's right. There's nothing.
Well, when he dresses Hartnell down when he's lying on the bed, and he gives him a telling off for shouting at him and stuff like that. It's really good.
It's amazing.
But he's very nurturing, isn't he? He helps the other guy that's been going through the system for nearly 2 years. He helps him out.
I just want to say, like, if that's the kind of teaching I needed at school, because I was quite slow at learning things. And I think the best they ever did was just like give me a bit of extra time with stuff. But you know, I think we all learn in different ways, and I actually think like people try to say they're old-fashioned and offensive, but I'd say that was pretty progressive for the time.
Oh yeah.
It was a really sweet scene, actually. It was so lovely.
And because it's coming from the Kenneth Williams character as well, it's quite outfield, because he's been quite dismissive, but you actually see his character. He's not really. He's just being the rebel, the young man rebel that most of them would have been. He's educated himself. He's got all this, wonderful attitude really going on. So he's educating himself, and it's a case now where when he sees somebody he can help, he will do. When he sees the boys, he's part of the team. And it's Kenneth's character that comes up with the fact, no, we're going to win this for Sarge.
Yeah.
Because he's actually all right deep down, isn't he? He's treated us nicely. We're going to win this tomorrow. And they go all hell for leather to do it.
I thought it was quite funny. He said that they should do it because the William Hartnell character was not giving them a really hard time and not screaming at them or shouting at them. I actually think he'd just given up. But it was really,
if this was Rocky, there'd be a montage of them doing all the extra to get ready.
Dalek, I love you, is saying to us here, there are so many one-liners that still get repeated even today. Now, there is a famous one in this that I heard, and Ian might have heard of this years ago. Not that I was in the army, but I did work on an army base, and a certain army base. And there was this whole, there was a line that some of the lads had been handed down, and it was "How in the name of Aldershot." And I didn't realize where that had come from until I watched this film back, because I'd completely forgotten "How in the name of Aldershot," which of course is still one of the big training camps in the UK. So "How in the name of Aldershot," and when I heard that when I was watching this, I thought, oh my god, the penny after all these years dropped. Because yes, I did work in the NAFI in the Aldershot base in the 90s. I had a hell of a time, but we won't go into that. It was fabulous. Those lads certainly knew how to have fun. Kev is saying to us here, considering the harsher language with no context being left in new so-called sitcoms, are there any sitcoms today? F-word, etc. Yeah, they would cut a lesser word from Steptoe and Son. You're absolutely right, Kev, aren't you? I mean, the fact is, you've got a pretty girl with a big chest and they'll cut it. And yet people are able to say the F-word and all sorts now.
Well, what got me was I caught a bit of Carry On Camping when it was being screened on, I think it was ITV3. And the famous chest-busting scene with Barbara Windsor. The actual shot of a bikini pinging was left in. But the shot which sets it up of Kenneth Williams going, now really, let's see those chests come out, got cut. What?
It's going to be fabulous when we get to that particular film, haven't we? Because, everybody get the unedited versions now if you're going to join us here on Whose Views to look at all these films, because we do want to do them all. We'll do them semi-regularly because we've got other plans coming for you as well. But we get the unedited versions now.
Yeah, as Jack said earlier, you watch them through the years and you suddenly think, how did they get away with that? The pennies just dropped on that one. Because I can remember I must have been in my late teens seeing Follow That Camel for like the 5th, 6th time. And all of a sudden, Fort Soissons Neuf. And I just went, I mean, there's one point where, is it Jim Dale and Kenneth Williams? The lines they say to each other is, what position are they holding? They're holding down Soissons Neuf. I'm sorry, that got passed in an A film.
And that's the beauty. And this, but Carry On Sergeant isn't quite at that point yet, because it is, as I said, I love the fact that you could actually watch all those wonderful Ealing films, those wonderful ones, even the ones with Sir Alec Guinness in them, those beautiful, the Lavender Hill Mob, all those beautiful, but you could squeeze these initial Carry On films in there so easily. So you could show something like the Lavender Hill Mob, and then you could have Carry On Sergeant coming on, and then you could have one of the thrillers going on there from Ealing at the time, and they're just so classy. They're just so classy. I love it.
The Centurions as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, God, yeah. Well, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Once the Carry Ons have been going for a while, they did actually get the approval of the critics in the UK when Carry On Spying was released. The Observer did a huge article on the Carry Ons, reviewed Spying as a new film, and the article, which I think was written by Derek Malcolm, the title of it was "In Praise of Carry On." And in the article, he says something like, they are raucous, laugh-out-loud comedies without the coy pretension of the Ealing comedies.
Oh, do you know what? That's actually a really good point, isn't it? Because if you look at something like Passport to Pimlico, that's a completely different, it's slightly heavy comedy compared to the Carry On Sergeant, which is so light and tongue-in-cheek.
I saw the Lavender Hill Mob again just recently, and I really enjoyed it. And Sid James is in that as well, which is nice.
Yeah. Oh, well, this is a nice comment from Lynn. Look at this, everyone. I have to say, living abroad, I haven't thought about the Carry On films for years. It reminds me of good times. That's nice to know. Nice. Because, I mean, the Carry On films must have been from this particular one on as well. Bearing in mind that this is 1958, and what that generation who went to see this would have been through. Let's face it, they've come out of the war. We're talking about the war generations here, the Second World War generation. This must have been a relief for all of them. No wonder it was a success. The nation wanted to laugh. It's something that we need today as well. But we're not allowed to laugh anymore, quite frankly. I've got all that. So thank you for that, Lynn. I'm glad that you it's reminded me of good times. Michael is saying to us, imagine Kenneth Williams as the Doctor and Sid James as the Master. Michael, no.
Can I just say, if you've not seen it, Michael, somewhere on YouTube, somebody absolutely brilliantly has redubbed extracts from Star Wars with Darth Vader voiced by Kenneth Williams doing lines from.
I've seen that. It's brilliant.
And it's eye-wateringly funny.
There's a Harry Enfield sort of Doctor Who one they do based on the buses as well, and they've got Harry Enfield and forgot the other guy who's in it, playing on the buses characters, but it's Doctor Who, which is quite interesting.
Harry Enfield did his own tributes to the Carry-Ons called Carry On Banging, which actually featured Barbara Windsor and Jack Douglas.
Oh, bless.
That's in Norbert Smith, A Life, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Yes, I recommend that. I get a chance to see it.
Yeah.
Melvin Bragg's in that playing himself, and it's really funny, really funny.
Doug is saying we bring up an interesting point here where Kenneth Williams' performances are quite different in the early ones, whereas Kenneth Connor played the same variation of his character, then changed it up a bit later. I mean, it's pretty noticeable here. It really, I mean, this is having studied a bit about Kenneth Williams' life through his diaries and all the books that came out with him after his death and what have you. He was another very confused character in his real personal life. Bless him. God love him. And I understand that. He was a gay man that couldn't deal with his homosexuality. Big can of worms there. I understand that for the time he was in. However, he was also struggling with the persona that he actually created in these films. So it's very nice to see him at this point just being an actor and being the serious side of it with comedic time. Because somewhere on the lines, he just went, "Oh, no, yes, I'm not having this," and did that because it was getting the laughs. Laugh, laugh. And he became that grotesque, didn't he? So it's nice to see him.
Have you seen his Parkinson interviews? They're really interesting. We have Maggie Smith and Sir John Betjeman. They're on YouTube. You should look at them out. They're really, really good. And he's fascinating in that. It really is.
And he had a lot of stories about his time on the Carry-Ons as well. I just find it so... I love these initial Carry-Ons where he's there being the actor I never got to see. You know what I mean?
I think the turning point for Kenneth Williams in the Carry-Ons where he became that caricature of himself was from Carry-On Spying onwards.
Oh, yeah.
That was the one where he became, the Kenneth Williams character.
Yeah. He kind of started at Hancock, didn't he? And wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, he played a lot of different characters in Hancock. He'd do the very crusty old judge, the very authoritarian but old policeman. He'd play the guy that constantly turned up with the opening line, "Good evening," who was generally incompetent about absolutely everything. He'd be one of Sid's heavies, or two or three of Sid's heavies. It'd be when Hancock was trying to get an early night because he was up in the morning. He was a motorbiker who brought his girlfriend, played by Hattie Jakes, back, and they give us a kiss. No, God, no. And Hancock shouting out the window, and he could do so many different voices.
Yeah, one of your comments
superb.
Was about Will o' the Wisp.
Yes.
And I remember Will o' the Wisp very well because Kath and I absolutely, my friend at the time, still my friend, loved it. And she loved Evil Edna and the Moog and fabulous characters.
He also did Galloping Galaxies as well.
Galloping Galaxies.
Oh, God,
now, for those of you who don't know, Galloping Galaxies was a BBC One children's series, and he played the voice of the robot brilliantly. And it was all done with Doctor Who sets. Doctor Who set, basically, and Blake Seven costumes. It was brilliant.
And like Bernard Cribbins, he appeared so many times with Jack Inori, which was fabulous as well.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Jack won't understand what we're talking about here. So.
I had this
YouTube beckons, Jack.
I had this one from the horse's mouth. Graham Williams' original idea for the voice of K9, when K9 was just going to be a one-off character in The Invisible Enemy, was Kenneth Williams.
Can you imagine? Could you imagine? That would have been a completely different character for the dog, and I don't think it would have been as popular.
Big Finish would have to get David Benson in to do that one, I think.
God. Mark is saying to us here, our resident poet laureate here on Who's. Listen, thank you very much, everybody, for tuning into Who's Views. Carry on. Hope you're enjoying yourselves. Thank you so much for this. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. We do appreciate it. We're just doing some different things here. We decided we needed a laugh for obvious reasons. One of which is this one from Dalek. I love you telling us Carry On Camping was on the other night. Oh no, that was Doctor Who.
That's on Saturday as well. Yeah.
Mark is saying to us here, is it true the Carry On films featured an ensemble cast including actors from various backgrounds and ethnicities for actors who would otherwise have been overlooked? George, over to you for that one.
I always say that the Carry On team was one of those amazing lightning in a bottle moments. You could never replicate it. You just had the perfect combination of people at the right time.
Yes, you
did.
There
were various people who never made it into the Carry-Ons. Like, to me, the Carry-On girl who never was Sheila Stiefel, who I thought would have been brilliant in the Carry-Ons.
Oh yeah, she never got there, did she?
No, she never did a Carry-On. But there were so many that just didn't get cast because their type of comedy or their type of character, there was already somebody in the Carry On team. Like Sheila Stiefel didn't get in because Joan Sims was already there. Yeah. And Peter Rogers and Jerry Thomas would make very definite casting decisions. Like they would never cast Terry Scott and June Whitfield in the same Carry On film because of the association with Terry and June, the TV show. And they said it's a Carry On, it's not Terry and June.
That's fair enough, though. I understand that completely.
So they always got cast separately. they never did a Carry On together, though they did the Bless This House movie together, which was done by Peter Rogers and Jerry Thomas.
At least Sheila Steeple got in Daleks Invasion Earth 2150 AD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was Susan up to the Daleks. I remember that. Yes.
When you, as we go through this as well, it's going to be very interesting to see who didn't make it as well as who did into these films, because there's a lot of cameos. We're talking this one, of course, and Carry On Sergeant. William Hartnell is the star. Not only did he launch our very own Doctor Who, but he launched the Carry-Ons. He was the star of this particular one, never ever to be seen again. But of course, the massive, huge, one and only Mr. Pertwee creeps up later on in the series. So we'll be looking at all of those very soon as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, there's loads of them, isn't it? I mean, one of the most annoying parts I've ever seen John doing was in Carry On Cowboy. I can't stand that character.
Well, it's not the same character played in Carry On Columbus, almost.
Pretty much.
Just pretty much, yeah.
More or less.
So, John Pertwee didn't become a Carry On regular because, yet again, he wanted more money than was on the table.
What a surprise, everybody.
There's a theme, eh?
God love him. God love him. Let's look at them all then again. I mean, this lot here, these were the boys. With Kenneth Connor in here as well. These were the main characters, weren't they, of this particular film? And only 1, 2, 3 in that particular shot, along with Kenneth Connor, would go on to do a few more. Amazing when you think about the amount of actors who didn't come back after this one. I can't remember seeing Bill Owen in them again.
No, Bill Owen did.
Yeah.
Bill Owen did 4 of them.
Did he?
Oh, wow.
Okay, brilliant. That's quite good.
He reappeared in Nurse, Regardless, and Cabby.
Yeah.
Of course, Cabby. Oh, I love Cabby. Well, we're going to have to look at that. The lovely Dora Bryan. That's when she's fallen in love, isn't it? With Horace. She plays that so well.
Yes. Look at those bottles of Pepsi in the background.
I know, they're gorgeous. Oh, it's absolutely
Wasn't Dora Bryan a mate of G&T's? I remember reading that somewhere.
Yes, they were. Yeah, Dora had a hotel, again with a Carry On link in Brighton.
It was used for the location of Carry On at Your Convenience.
One of my favourite films where they we're going to be doing that. I think we might leave that one till May. If you've seen the film, you'll know what I'm talking about. So we might leave that one till May. And I like I've got this one as well. Look at this picture here. This is from the film as well. There's the boys there. Don't they look smart, everybody?
They do. It's funny. Gerald Campion's in the front there on the end here, and the bit that still tickles me. It makes me laugh every time I see it when they're doing the assault course, and he climbs over and his braces get stuck, or his parachute gets stuck, and he's just hanging there limply on the wall. That is brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
At the time, I bet you that was a brand new gag. But how many times have you seen that since?
Yeah, it's brilliant.
You know, I've seen that since, but it still gets me in this because I wasn't expecting it. Because I haven't watched it for ages. When it happens, I went, "Oh yeah, I love that."
It's brilliant. That's really brilliant. Yeah.
Would any of you believe me if I said that really happened to me?
No. Go on, tell us everything. You've got to tell us now, Jack.
I was doing Duke of Edinburgh. I don't know if you guys know that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we were taking a shortcut over a farmer's fence. And my backpack got stuck, and I was just dangling there for a good 3 minutes.
Brilliant.
My friends were taking photos instead of helping.
Yeah, they would be.
We need to see those photographs, Jack. Okay, so that's...
Oh no! I hope they've gone. I hope I never want to see.
No, we need to see them, and we need to put them on
the
show.
We do, yeah.
Yes.
What was even more embarrassing was because we were on someone's farm, the dogs were chasing us.
This is a Carry On plot in itself.
Yeah,
you've just illustrated all the elements there of part of a Carry On film. The dogs, especially. I can just see you now in high motion speed camera action going rushing through.
Well, I found out who my friends were because we got to the fence, and the one in front, the one behind me, threw me back to get ahead of me, and thankfully the dogs didn't bite. They were just playful.
Oh, well, that's good to know. Bill Owen was in Nurse, Regardless, and Cabby. How could I forget about Cabby? That's one of my favourites. We will be coming to that.
There's
as well,
one actor's in Cabby surprised me, Milo O'Shea, who I absolutely love. Really good, really great actor.
Yes.
Yeah. And this one's for you, Jack. Look at that.
Yeah.
Oh no, Jack. The craziness of that, says YW there. And Steve is saying to us here, Dora could have been in Earthshock. Steady on, Steve.
That's a good point. Instead of Belle Reed, could have been, I can see that.
Yeah. Yeah, and also YW is saying to us here, what's Cabby? It's Carry On Cabby. It's one of the films that comes after this one. So stay with us, YW. If you haven't seen
one of the wonderful, most sexist piece of music ever produced in it. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Every time you see the female cabby, that music that plays. Yes.
I love it. I absolutely love it. It's fabulous. And what else we got? And Dalek, I love you, is saying to us here, gets me how these lads are meant to be young recruits, but all look about middle age. I'm sure they wouldn't like you for saying that.
That's what happened in the olden days. In black and white, everyone looked older than they were. Look at photographs of your granny and granddad, they're about 20, look about 50. You know, that's what happens.
Absolutely. That's correct. I know. It's to their credit, actually, Dalek, I love you, that I don't think about that, because they're just playing it, aren't they? And I don't think about the fact they're probably 10 years too old for this. I love the fact that they managed to nail it. Absolutely fabulous. So Clive is saying to us here, remember Beryl Reid and Mooncat? I do, but
yeah,
that's another show. No, you're fine actually, YW. Yeah, it's another one. There are 30 odd. Well,
31. 31.
There's two that we might not be doing. And with some of the Carry On films there, but there's two that we won't be doing. If you've enjoyed this, then please let us know, because I think right now, when we all need a laugh, I think it'll be nice every now and then just to drop in a Carry On review. I think, you know, if the guys are up for it, you know, and hopefully Jack will be up to watch them all as well, and you guys can watch them all, and we can go and do that. So we can let you know if you're interested. This is true. Would you do a review of one of our dinosaurs is missing, as some of the Carry On cast are in it? Some of the Carry On cast are in that, and it's one of my favorite films. Yeah,
we'll get taken off of YouTube if we play that. I'll talk about that.
Yes, it's a Disney film. It's problematic.
Yes, it certainly is. But I'd love to review it. It's a great film.
It gave me an obsession with dinosaurs that lasted, oh my God, about 7 years. I was just obsessed. Wanted to be a paleontologist. It was just absolutely.
This one down here, Jodie. This one down here. He loves the dinosaurs as well.
Oh my God. And my kids like dinosaurs too. And I did not influence them there at all. So
yeah,
it's in the genes, Jodie. That's what it is.
What? You didn't buy them the Doctor Who dinosaur book?
I didn't know.
It's a cracking read that. Yeah.
Hey, don't knock that book. I love that. But yeah, it's a nice suggestion. It's one of my favorite films. I've got it on DVD because it was one of those in 2020, like the Carry On films, where I panicked and thought they're gonna ban everything. So I spent a small fortune on practically everything I could think of. Just thinking, because we were all in lockdown as well, so I had a whole mad week where every day other stuff was coming through.
You bought those. I went out and bought all the really horribly awful sword and sorcery movies of the 1980s. Hawk the Slayer. Oh my God.
Oh my life.
Yes, Carry On Kroll. Yes, that would have been good.
I got Kroll as well.
Yeah, Bernard Bresslaw was in that.
He was. Cyclops.
I mean, it shows you the cleverness of these Carry On films, because here they all are starting in here, and we see them as we grow up. And I think that's the other reason that we all find these. And I'm so glad that Jack and some of his generation are finding these uncut versions and taking them to heart, or have been raised on them by adults as well, because they're so special and they are such an important part of British film history, British film humor. And I just wish that, you know, they were more appreciated. There was a point there, I think, in the 90s where they were, because they were talking about Carry On England, weren't they, and bringing them all back, even after the Columbus fiasco and all this sort of stuff. And now we just seem to be in that day and age now where you just know you will never get this again. There is no way they can repeat the Carry Ons ever.
I mean, if you cut me in half, I'd have Carry On written through me. But the very last thing I want is for the Carry Ons to come back.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. They tried it; it didn't work. Well, anyway, I don't want to talk about that now because we want to stay upbeat. If you are used to, if there was a Who's Views reviews, when we're doing our reviews on our favorite Doctor Who, you'll know that we do a marking system where I ask the panel for their marks out of 10 for the story that we've just watched, the episodes we've just watched. Well, actually, we're going to do it with this one as well. So this is scores on Matron's clipboard, because believe it, back in the day, Matron would have had a clipboard or two.
They had matrons as well in those days.
Yes.
They have matrons as well. Oh, I can't wait till we get to the matron ones and we can really start looking at it. Garbage is saying to us here, carry on pronouns, knock it off. Absolutely not. We're not no. Problem being is say carry on wokesters. Carry on whining. Oh God, you could go mad with this, couldn't you? Absolutely. And Richard is admitting here, Jodie, for you, he's got Krill on DVD as well. But don't worry, we've got doctors available.
Yeah, for that. You can, yeah, fine. Yeah.
So what I want you all in the chat to do is all the usual, please. I'm not even going to read that one out, Martin. And Richard is saying to us here, please do not review That's Carry On, the clip show, or Carry On Columbus. I'm with you on that one, Richard. Don't worry about it.
Is that in the box set? That's just the last one on the box set before Emmanuel, I think, is it something like that? But,
I think so.
I don't think it is in the box set. It's held by a different company.
Yes, I think it is.
Yeah, I think you've got to buy it separately if you want it.
Is that the one that's presented by Kenneth Williams and Barbara Windsor, is it?
Yes, but you know what? I remember as a kid when those things were coming on, they were so important because they made me want to go and see the films as well, because they were, when's that going to be on? When's that going to be on? And I remember pestering all my blooming my parents to be able to say, when's the next Carry On? And then they hadn't started coming out on the 9.99 VHS at Woolies yet at that point, remember?
It was a bit like when you used to get Disney Time in the 70s, you show lots of different clips of Disney movies, the same kind of feeling, wasn't it? You know?
Yeah, it is. Anyway, where was it? Yes, so this is scores on Matron's clipboard. If you can start putting into the chat now for Carry On Sergeant, what you're going to give out of 10 for Carry On Sergeant. Garbage is still on this. Look, Carry On tick box. Carry On Net Zero. There are a lot we could do. I wonder if people would get the humor though with it all. And I'm going to start with George. Your scores on Matron's clipboard, please, out of 10 for Carry On Sergeant.
Okay, well, the wonderful Carry On's got off to a fine start with this one. It's you can't be surprised the fact it was the third biggest box office hit in the UK in 1958, and it wasn't released until August. It was the most successful comedy film at the UK box office ever up to that point. It's lively, it's well paced, it puts a smile on your face. It's just got such a good feel-good factor about it. You can watch it 10, 20 times and never tire of it. I think it's a very, very strong 9 out of 10.
Oh, wonderful. That's a good one. That's a good one. Okay, Jodie, what are you going to give it for Matron's clipboard out of 10?
I really loved it as a film. I thought it was an absolutely super film. But I still love the later Carry-Ons that are a bit more salacious, a bit more cheeky. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. But I did really love it and forgot it was so good.
Brilliant. Paul, what are you going to give this?
I've seen this film many, many times. I'm surprised I had to get the box set to remember what was in it, because I've seen it hundreds of times. It's a great film. I kind of agree a little bit like what Jodie said. It's not, for me, as strong as the later movies, but I do really like this film. And Hartnell's superb in it. Yes. For that alone, I'll give it 9 out of 10.
Excellent score. Ian, Major Eyeswater. Very Carry On. What are you going to give this?
Great film, great start to the series. Hartnell, of course, so many famous names. I do think they get better, and I enjoy them more, although I love this. It's an 8.5 from me.
Oh, we would have to put an half in it. Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much. And Jack, what are your scores on Matron's clipboard for Carry On Sergeant?
Well, I've seen this film many, many times with my granddad, and honestly, watching these films is to this day some of my happiest memories. It just has a charm about it. You can watch it over and over again and still enjoy it. I love the acting, love the story, the music, and it's just great. So for me, a solid and well-deserved 9, and it's in my top 10 best Carry-Ons.
Oh, that's brilliant. Well done. Thank you for that. Keep your scores coming in for Matron's clipboard in the chat, everybody. I'm going to give my score now, and I'm going to echo exactly what Jodie said, which will be no surprise to her, because even though I really enjoyed this film, just like Jodie, and I do love this film, I love what's to come more. I really do. So I'm going to save my 9s and 10s for the big guns here. Well, I can't wait for them here. So I'm giving this one an 8 as well, even though I do love it and I can watch it happily. But it's still done really well from us, more than a certain other British franchise at this time. Let's have a look and see what they're all going on about in the chat then. Peter Harrington. Pete, hello, Pete. He's saying to us here, 9 out of 10 slide whistles for Sarge. Fabulous. Sam is saying 9, which is wonderful. And Lex is saying to us 9 out of 10. Very good comedy timing, especially with the fire.
It's great.
I wonder if he did that in one shot because it was so brilliantly done. Yeah. Very good comedy movie. Fantastic. Garbage is saying carry on panda, and that's not the fluffy ones. Matthew is giving it 10 out of 10.
Wow.
I've seen that for quite a while on this show. Well done. 10 out of 10. Thank you for that, Matthew. Nice to see you. Richard is giving it an 8. Fantastic. And Elizabeth is joining us. Hello, Elizabeth. She's got, actually, no disrespect, Elizabeth, you have a very carry-on name, the Lady Knightsbridge. Mm-hmm. Yes, that could have been coming in later, but she's got 7-10. Get on, carry on, get Brexit.
Yeah, we are still waiting. Yeah,
yeah, we are still waiting. Yeah, that reminds me, actually, doesn't it, Elizabeth? At the time when they said, did you see that meme on all the social media, which made me laugh so much, where it said the British delegation are on their way to Brussels to talk about an arranged Brexit, and it was the Carry On team. I thought that was brilliant.
And it keeps stopping at all the pubs on the way, you know.
Yeah. But thank you for that, Lady Knightsbridge.
Can I just say on that, just as an aside, an anecdote here. I was at the Carry On's 55th anniversary party at Westminster Hall a few years back.
I am not jealous at all.
No.
But on the ground floor of Westminster Hall, Nigel Farage was holding the annual conference for whichever party he was fronting at the time.
Oh.
Anyway, the whole Carry On people assembled for photos and stuff on the lawn at the front of Westminster Hall. All the press that were there for Nigel Farage turned around, saw all the Carry On people, literally just walked away from Nigel Farage. Concentrated on the Carry Ons.
Well, to be honest, you would, wouldn't you? Quite. Who would you be more interested in, the Carry On team or a load of politicians? I know which way I would go as well. But I love that. You know,
Ted James for Prime Minister.
Oh God, yeah. Stephen, a massive heartwarming for the lighter scene alone. 10 out of 10. This is great. Steve Hindley is also giving it a 10 out of 10. We haven't seen marks like this for some weeks now, everybody. Dalek, I love you. 8 out of 10. Kev is giving it an 8 out of 10. Limykins is with us and giving it 7 out of 10, but Kenneth Connor makes it for me. Problem being is giving it 7.5 out of 10. Carry On Twerking, says Steve Braddock. You see, all the content is there. If only we could have a laugh.
Yes.
Carry On Poor Baby. It is all there, isn't it? We just wouldn't be able to get it made. 9 out of 10, says Paul Richards for Sargent. It paved the way for the franchise, and didn't it do an absolutely fantastic job of doing that? And they didn't know at the time, did they? Carry On Triggered, says Data Debaser. Lynn is giving it a solid 8 out of 10, and Garbage is saying Carry On bestest ever and Carry On gammons. Well, that's us. And Pete is giving this a 9 out of 10 for Sargent and an early 4 for Shirley Eaton. We are probably going to get arrested for doing things like that this day. Let's have a look. Carry On Touching Grass. And let's Carry On Bedwetters, says Ian.
I couldn't help it, sorry.
Dalek, I love you saying, I can see a pattern of higher scores for this than the other thing you suffer. I mean, review. Doug is saying too, this is typical Carry On humor. 9 out of 10, says Doug. I love the later films, but the early ones have a special charm. Totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And as we look at the black and white ones, when we compare them to what comes later, I think we're going to actually see the difference there as they evolve, because they do evolve. It's all based on this wonderful one as well, isn't it? Gary Bryant is saying to us here, 7 for a Carry On, 10 for an old-fashioned 50s style comedy. And Peter Davis, nice to see you, Peter. Thanks for joining us. 9 3/4 for me. That is a typical Carry On mark as well, isn't it? Brilliant.
Can I say, I meant to mention as well that another bit made me laugh a lot was Charles Horter get locked in the toilet. That's why he was late.
Yes. Must I say?
Yes.
Isn't that also charming? Because they can't even say the word toilet in the late 50s. It wasn't polite, was it? You know, I love that. Any more in the chat? Oh, yes. Edward is saying to us here, 9 out of 10, a great opener for the franchise. And YW is saying to us here, carry on Doctor Who, please. I think it's doing a great job of that itself, mate. We do it every Sunday here on this channel where we review that particular thing. What else we got coming in? Any more coming on here from you all? Any more scores? No, is that it? That's it? Oh, well, listen, thank you very much for that. I hope you've enjoyed this. Panel, have you enjoyed this?
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah. And George, write that book.
Yeah.
Got to sneak this one in from... and this one. I love our audience.
We need Don't Carry On Doctors, what we need, really. But
and carry on laughing. Listen, that's brilliant. Thank you so much to the panel for this. If you have enjoyed this, and I think you have, but if you have, give us a thumbs up. Make sure if you're new to the channel, you subscribe to the channel. Pop in some comments below the show for us as well, so we know. Because if so, hopefully George, Jodie, Paul, Ian, Jack, and myself will be back to talk more carry-ons. We've got some other spin-offs from our main show coming up for you as well. Hint, it was mentioned earlier in the show. So we'll keep an eye out for all that. They're all coming for you too. And don't forget that we are looking at Doctor Who at the moment with the new version every Sunday. What are you saying to us, George?
I was going to say, if you want another hint of what might be coming up, Carry On Sergeant opened at the Plaza Cinema in the West End and replaced a film called The Revenge of Frankenstein.
Wonder what he means by that one, everybody. But there you go.
No idea.
So listen, as ever, thank you for joining us. Yeah, great show, everybody. I've really enjoyed that. I'm so glad that we're going to be looking at the carry-ons because they are so special. And let's all explore them together. Until we see you next time here on Who's Views. Take care of yourself, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye, folks.
Bye.
Yes.